Thank you, Jorge. Thank you all, first of all, for being here. I was told entering the room that we are somehow at a record attendance level. This, I think, is already telling on the moment we're living. First of all, let me also say that it is really a pleasure for me to be with you again at the annual conference, which has become a key meeting, a key rendezvous for the European defence community. And I remember very well our last meeting last year. We were gathering in Brussels in another location, only a few days after the terrorist attacks in Paris. And 1 year ago, we all agreed in that same meeting and in meetings in those days that our reaction had to be rational and strategic and consistent. And in the last year, which has been a very intense year, we have all worked hard to set up our global strategy for foreign and security policy and to provide very concrete ideas to improve Europe's security and the security of our citizens. This year, we meet at a crucial juncture for our work towards a stronger Europe of defense. When I presented the global strategy last end of June, interesting timing as well, I said that we would have started immediately to turn the vision into action. And in a matter of days, just next Monday, I would present to the Council, Foreign and Defense Ministers together, the implementation plan on security and defense. And then, Tuesday, the work will continue with defense ministers in the European Defence Agency Steering Board, where we will discuss capabilities and concrete projects. So no theoretical debate, but very concrete action. This is the focus of these months, of these weeks, and also the expectations not only of all of us in this room, I think, but also our citizens outside of this room. Let me say that next March will be an important moment. Next March, we will celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome. And by that date, a concrete implementation process will have to be up and running. The title of this conference asks whether we are living a revolution or an evolution of European defense. And let me tell you very clearly, I believe the revolution we need is simply, but it's not so simple sometimes, to make things work. Sometimes it's more difficult to make things work than to reflect on big scenarios and great revolutions. So we will not engage in another theoretical debate. What we're doing, what we're working on, is concrete deliverables. What we need, what our citizens need, is not an endless hypothetical debate, being it on EU army or on changing our treaties. What we need to do is to use the instruments, all the potential, all the tools we already have. If I could summarize the message, would be no excuses, we just need to do it, and to do it now. You might very well know, some 60 years ago, the founding fathers and mothers of our European Union believed that a united Europe had to be built on two pillars: the European Economic Community and the defense community. They knew that a true union couldn't simply rely on the integration of the markets. They were right, and yet they failed. 60 years later, I believe the original intuition has become even more relevant. Security matters, as we say. In today's world, I believe security matters even more than during the Cold War. Europe and Europeans have somehow the responsibility and also the opportunity, especially in these days, we see it very clearly, to find our own way to security, to shape the answers to very difficult questions in a world where there's very few things, if any, we can give for granted. This is scary, but it is also challenging. This is also opening a way for us not only to reflect, but also to act and find real, effective answers to the big demand for security of our citizens. The European way, So what can be the European way to security? First of all, the internal security of our Union is very much linked to events happening outside of our borders, and especially in our region. Second, almost all our external policies have a security dimension. Our region is the most conflictual in the world. Our neighborhood policies, our development policies, our humanitarian policies, I would even say our trade policies or economic policies need security. And our partners outside of the Union ask us, expect from us to be a global security provider, a reliable one, a reliable partner for security, a provider of security, the European way, which we know is somehow a unique mix of different tools. Third, our world is much more complex, some might say messy, for sure multicentric, than in the past. Several continent-sized powers coexist, each one with continent-sized defense budgets and research programs. None of our member states, none of them, not even the biggest ones, is big enough in today's world. I will repeat here what I repeat every time I speak publicly. In European Union, we have two kinds of states, two kinds of member states, the small ones and those that have not yet realized they are small. This is the world we're living in, and we better wake up to this new reality of our world. So we need to act as a union. This is something new in our world. It has been a dream, our European Union. It has been an opportunity. It has been a plus. Sometimes it has been a luxury. Today is a necessity. Europe's responsibility today in the world is even greater than in the past, and in our region in particular. In our world, peace needs a cooperative effort. And here is the European way. Europe's potential role as a provider of regional and global cooperation for peace and security has never been this crucial. Because the European experience of building security through cooperation is unique in the world. And it's something that the world is looking for. It's also the most difficult way to security, but also the most stable way. I would say it's the sustainable way to security. So we must succeed today where our founding fathers and mothers did not succeed. And let me tell you, I am absolutely convinced we can succeed where they couldn't. One obvious reason is that we don't start from scratch. The Lisbon Treaty is already in place, and it offers very powerful tools we have not exploited yet. Using the treaty's full potential is a matter of political will, and only a matter of political will. Seems easy. Sometimes we know political will is one of the most difficult things to build, but it's only in our hands. It's only a decision-making issue. We don't have concrete obstacles ahead of us. We have a matter of political will. I am convinced the potential of the Lisbon Treaty has been not fully used, also because the European Union was mainly focused, just after the treaties, on our economic and financial crisis. Today we're facing a security crisis. We can go and look in what we have already to use the instruments we have, because we need it. And I'm sure this will open the way for the political will to be finally there. Our public opinions and our governments understand today the urgency of a strong Europe of security and defense, much more than in the past. So I see a clear window of opportunity right now to achieve concrete results. Let me give you a very concrete example. Jorge was mentioning the debate about strategic autonomy. Discussions on Europe's strategic autonomy have been going on for decades. You teach me. Today, I see that finally we have moved away from a never-ending, purely ideological debate. Because today, I believe it is clear to all, I hope it is clear to all, that in practice, there is no contradiction between more strategic autonomy and our commitment to our long-term partners. NATO remains, this is clear here in Europe, NATO remains the cornerstone of our collective defense, just like it has been for almost 70 years, both in Europe, for us, and across the Atlantic, for our American friends. No doubt about this here. But strategic autonomy means first and foremost the ability to be a reliable partner, to care about our own security, to care about the security of our region, for which we are called to take more responsibilities in our own interest, not because somebody else asks. And to take our fair share of responsibility, doing it the European way, with this unique mix of hard and soft power, using all our tools. First of all, let me say the capacity to understand local, regional dynamics, and also to prevent mistakes that sometimes can fuel rather than put an end to conflicts. We have the responsibility and the opportunity to use the European way to security in our region for our own interest and for the interest of the rest of the world. So today we are running 3 parallel processes at the same time. Jorge mentioned clearly some of them. First, the implementation of the global strategy with the implementation plan on security and defense. Second, the European Defense Action Plan. And the follow-up to the joint EU-NATO declaration that we signed in Warsaw last July. And these 3 processes together reinforce and complement each other. A strong NATO makes Europe safe. And as my friend Jens Stoltenberg always mentions, a stronger European Union can only make NATO stronger. With a joint declaration between the European Union and NATO, we have committed to more cooperation in fields where we complement each other, because we're different. We have different tools, different capacities. For instance, on maritime security, on cyber, or on hybrid threats. And we will present a very concrete set of options together, NATO and the European Union, myself and Jens, to our respective councils in just a month from now. And we have already the fact that we have developed this set of concrete options for implementation of our joint declaration is telling about the fact that our teams, our staffs, our people, and ourselves are working together as one. This is needed to strengthen the European security and to strengthen the NATO capacity to respond to our challenges of today, because the European Union has tools that NATO doesn't have, because we have a different nature. The European Union is not a military alliance. We have instruments that NATO doesn't have. NATO has instruments that we don't have. We don't need to have all the same, but we can work together to cover a full range of different threats and to prevent conflicts and crises better. But for our cooperation to be sustainable, we need to make sure our capabilities are up to the task. And here I come to le noyau dur. Europe has to be very careful, I believe, very careful. And I don't need to preach to the converted, that the investment gap is not translated into an ever wider technology gap. Because a technology gap would then lead to an interoperability gap. And if left unchecked, this could translate into a political gap, which would clearly not be in our interest. And I would add, this would also have economic implications for our continent. So I've always believed, always, today, yesterday, the day before yesterday, that a healthy relationship with the United States needs a strong Europe of defense. Because it should be clear to everyone, and I believe it's starting to be clear to everyone, that we can only succeed in providing security to our citizens if we work together as a true union with the full potential of a superpower in the field of security and defense. Also because we're facing increasingly competition in the global market, and you know that very well. Rising powers that used to be our customers are now investing, innovating, building up their own defense industries. And the rest of the world has recognized that science and technology are central to national economies. For instance, they have invested in technologies that make cyber systems more resistant, and that will be a crucial asset in years ahead. So what I'm talking about here is not at all engaging in a race for armaments, and I would like our friends outside the room to understand that. But there can be no strategic autonomy and no role for Europe as a global security provider, the European way, I would say the smart way, without a strong, smart, innovative European industrial base. This is essential for us to understand. This will not change the nature of our understanding of security, but this will change the power of our action on security. So this is a key focus in the actions we're undertaking. Elisabetta Bieńkowska will tell you more this afternoon about the work the Commission is doing, we're doing together also with the European Defence Agency. I've always have identity crisis when I have to mention work different institutions are doing, because I'm doing them on all the sites, Commission, Defence Agency, Council. We're steering really the work in a manner that see us work as a team, I think in a very fruitful manner. And I would like here really to recognize the work that all our skillful teams here are working on all sides of the streets and the square in a way that is really encouraging for our European Union understanding. I was saying, Elisabetta will tell you more this afternoon about the work we're doing together and also together with the agency on the Defence Action Plan and the preparatory action on defence-related research. But let me just say that this can be a real game changer, I would say the real game changer for our industry. The starting point is one of our most successful experiences, Horizon 2020 research program. By the way, one of the programs that our partners in our region are more interested in joining. That is normally the proof of the fact that it works, that is attractive. But Horizon 2020 only covers civilian and dual-use technologies. A continent-wide joint research program on defense would be a natural extension of Horizon 2020. And we have an immense potential there in terms of joint research programs on defense, economies of scale, and a more predictable time frame for investments. To develop the technologies of the future, and the future goes fast, we need to start investing right now. But a big part of our work can deliver concrete results in a much shorter time frame. So it will be up to our member states now, to us all together, as Jorge was mentioning, to define the starting point, our level of ambition. And I would expect that we will be able to do this on Monday. So we're running fast, sometimes it happens. This means we will define the concrete challenges we consider essential for us to face together, and 1 minute after, the instruments we need to do so. At that moment, we are ready, we will have to be ready all together to proceed at full speed, which for me means running and running fast. I can share with you an anecdote. We presented the global strategy at the end of June. There was a lot of discussions about that because it was a couple of days after the UK referendum. I was convinced it was the right moment. It would have been the right moment even with the different outcome of the referendum. But it's in moments of question marks and crisis that you need to set the way and say what you want to do. But then the immediate reaction was, okay, now we'll take some time and present or work on a white book, on papers. And I said, no, it's a matter of months we have to translate this into something real happening, all of us together. And I think when we want, when we have unity, when we have a clear idea in mind, we can act fast and we can act together. So our proposals in the Security and Defense Implementation Plan include a series of issues that I think will make the difference, will make the evolution or the revolution in defense for Europe. First, they could include also, I mentioned just a few of them, it's not an exhaustive list, a better use of our rapid response forces, for instance, with a flexible deployment of the battle groups. I'm really convinced that this is an instrument that, especially for bridging the time that is needed, for instance, to set up a UN peacekeeping force. This is an excellent instrument we have. We're also considering how to better integrate our civilian and military operations, the real added value of the European Union, the fact that we have both sides, from the planning stage to the actual deployment, and also to improve coordination among our personnel here in Brussels and on the ground. Here again, let me clarify, it's not huge headquarters shape style setup we are thinking of, but I always remind ourselves, you will know that very well in this room, we already have 5 headquarters running 17 missions and operations. So it's not a matter of setting up big new things, it's a matter of having a rational approach, an effective approach to how we plan and conduct our missions and operations. So it's about streamlining, making things we have functioning better, changing where we have to change. We cannot stand still, frozen somehow, out of fear of ghosts that do not exist, like duplication or, again, building structures, big infrastructures that are not really in our plans. But this cannot prevent us from making things work better, where we see there is a space for improvement. But the implementation plan is not simply about a more coordinated use of our assets. It can also help us find ways to invest more and invest better in our industry and in research. So we are exploring a large set of instruments to make resources available. A coordinated annual review on defense could facilitate joint programs among member states and a more cooperative way of developing our capabilities. We could also envisage some kind of financial solidarity for common defense projects, as well as a broader range of collective funding options. And the European Defence Agency will have a key role in supporting and coordinating this work, acting as a pivot between member states and the Commission. And I am fully determined, since I started almost exactly 2 years ago, to use not my 2 hats, but my 3 hats, because people tended to forget that I'm not only the Vice President of the Commission or chairing the Council, but also the head of the agency. And this is exactly the kind of exercise where the 3 hats proved to be useful. The treaties were right in defining this role. Some say my role is a mission impossible. I think it's perfectly possible and actually also very useful. So this is why I've launched a review focused on the future of the agency together with Jorge, and we are working on concrete recommendations to be presented in the coming months, by next spring, I can say. This is a critical juncture. You've all noticed this, especially in these days. It's in our European history a critical juncture. It's also a critical juncture in the history of the world. And the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome, I believe, will be the opportunity for us to spell out what the present and the future of our union is, not with empty celebrations, but with very concrete steps forward. By next March, I believe we could announce in Rome, hopefully, a major step forward towards a defense and security union. I leave this to your days of work, if will be an evolution or a revolution. What interests me is that this is a change, that this is a step forward. Can be an evolution, can be a revolution, but the important thing is that it moves and that we manage in this window of crisis, but also of opportunity that our union is facing, with the security environment as we see it, outside and inside our union, with the weaknesses, but also the need to react to the weaknesses we're facing, with concrete horizon for our union. This is a unique moment for us to make the difference and succeed where 60 years ago our founding mothers and fathers did not. I believe this is a responsibility we have, first of all towards our citizens, that everywhere across our union ask for security. Look at the polls. First comes security, second comes economy, employment. This is new. We have a responsibility to respond to that. And we have also responsibility in this respect towards our region and towards the rest of the world. In the months and years ahead, actually I can say in the hours we're living, there will be an increasing demand of Europe from our neighbors and from our partners worldwide. There is and there will be a growing request for a principled global security provider, for a superpower that believes in multilateralism and in cooperation, for a reliable, predictable partner for peace, for growth, and for democracy. And there will be, I believe, a rising call for a stronger European Union. So it's up to us. In a changing global landscape, Europe will be more and more an indispensable power. This is the time, I believe, to take our responsibilities and to respond to that call together, and we can do this only as a true union. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very successful day of work.
Is she going?